The wild one. Silent is the scream that woke me up at night. Silent is the sun as it rises in the morning. Silent is the heart that glimmers anew. As I wailed my way into a new world with a slap on my bum and a prick on my foot, the APGAR scores told the staff I was okay. Are there scores that tell me I am okay as I find my way back to that silent, glimmering anew moment? I walk into the cool moonlight that heals the wounds that the salty tears and the warmth of the sun could never close. I've been coming home to my heart, myself, my wild one. Question. Have I found home? When I first moved to New York City, or when I visited after college, I came to visit, and I had an experience here that said I need to live here. I was walking across the street in Chelsea. I was here for a conference, and it was a dance education, arts education type of conference. So I was looking to move more into arts education and integrating the arts into how you teach children.
Okay.
And what was very interesting for me is I got hit by a bicyclist really hard. I was out on the floor or on the concrete. I was walking across. I had the right of way. The bicyclist hit me, and I was like, "Ooh, okay." I picked myself up. The bicyclist stopped. He came over, asked, "Are you okay?" And he gave me a hug. And like, "Do you need me to take you to a hospital?" I'm like, "No, I'm fine. I'm fine." I go, "I just got, I'm okay." Another owner of a pizzeria, a couple doors down from the sidewalk, he was like, "Do you want to come into my bathroom and clean yourself up? Are you okay? Are you sure you're okay? Is there anyone I need to call? Is your head okay?" That level of care and community I had not experienced before at that same level from strangers, absolute strangers. They didn't know me from anyone.
And just saying, "Are you okay?"
Yeah. And I was like, and then I started to tell my friends, because when I was here, I was meeting a lot of different friends from college, and they kept telling me stories like this, similar stories where people were looking out for each other, didn't know each other, complete strangers, but they knew in this city we had to look out for each other. I was like, wow, that's a place I want to live.
That's the place I want to be.
And that's one of the beauties I love about New York City. Everybody, all of my relatives, because they're all in smaller rural communities in the Midwest, they're all like, "How can you live in such a big city? How can you like stand it?" And I'm like, well, part of it is that you can constantly reinvent yourself. You're not stuck as one person or one identity, but you can choose to be part of the community or not. And you can find all of these different communities for yourself. You can belong anywhere, which is amazing.
Right. And I mean, New York City is the world city, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
It really is. I have learned so much here. And I love raising my kids here. I absolutely love raising my kids here.
My mother used words she had learned intentionally, designed to diminish my trust in my wild one and myself. Like, what is the meaning of that?
Yeah. So this comes back. Say that again. So feedback. So the words my mother used. So this really comes back. My mom I wouldn't say my mom was neglectful. Mm-hmm. I mean, my mom really loves me. Like, I know that. I had this aha moment, and it's such a weird space to have this like moment of like revelation about your mother.
Okay.
A friend of mine had invited me to the musical Into the Woods because they were redoing it recently here in New York City. She invited me to come with her. Okay. And as we were watching it, the Rapunzel story came up, and the witch who had put Rapunzel into the tower
Mhm.
had done that because she had loved her so much that she didn't want her to experience the evils and the harms of the world.
Okay.
So that was the revelation about my mom. My mom was putting me in this tower because she wanted me to be protected. She wanted me to be safe. She wanted me not to feel hurt and pain.
Okay. Okay.
But at the same time, and so her words were helping to try to build that sort of security and blanket of like, yeah, don't trust your inner
Yeah.
voice because that inner voice is going to put you in situations that are going to harm you and hurt you, and you are going to be in danger.
Gotcha. Gotcha. And that's that fortress you're talking about.
Yes. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Like the tower and the words and just sort of how we construct these places of security, right? To be safe, but they also cage us. Oh, yeah. She was always there.
Always stirring.
Always
Okay.
there.
Okay.
Always stirring, always stirring. Yeah, because I'm just even trying to think like middle school was hard. High school was very, very hard.
Really.
Um,
Okay.
always. And part of it was that, it was hard for me to find a group of friends that I felt really comfortable with,
And connected
um,
with. Yeah.
and
And
connected with.
this was
Or
in Nebraska, right?
yes, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
So even when I did find friends that I could connect with, and that I felt really comfortable with, it wasn't the group that I was told socially I was supposed to be with.
Okay. Okay. I got it.
So yeah, it was this, the popular kids and like the kids that were a little bit more edgy and artistic and creative. Like that was
Mhm.
the group that I really identified with. But I know my mom wanted me to be more with like the popular kids, the kids who had money, because we didn't
Right.
have, I didn't have money growing up. It was just hard.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
The acceptable kids. I think you said that in one of your books. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean
Yeah.
your book,
Exactly.
one of the pages. Yeah. The
Yeah.
acceptable kids. Okay.
So I know in psychology, we always talk about the ego and the id and, kind of the separation of all of these things. But,
Mhm.
we still have to look at the whole person, right? So the person is everything. They're made
Okay.
up of everything, their experiences, who they are, how they're thinking about like who their ideal self is
Right.
and where they're
Right.
going. And so when I think about the wild one, I always think about it as that tiny little voice in our gut
Mhm. Okay.
that tells us what we want or what we need to do. What
Right. Okay.
direction, what path should we be on?
Okay.
And I really feel like so much of my upbringing, and I'm going to talk from my own experience, where those blueprints in that architecture is designed to create this distrust of that inner voice
Oh, okay.
and that distrust of like, no, this is who you are. This is what you need to do. This is where your passions are. This is your purpose. This is why you are put on this earth in this physical form now.
Okay. That's the blueprint. But yeah, the wild
Yeah.
one is telling me something totally different.
Oh, the wild one is that wild one is that little voice, right? It's that little voice inside of you that's like, no, wait, something's not right here. I don't understand what that is. And you just don't have the words or it's that gut feeling
Mhm.
where you're just like, ooh, I don't know. I don't know what that is. And we just silence that so much of ourselves. I hadn't really thought of it until I sat down to write about this experience for myself.
Okay.
When I was first approached about the book, and I had a friend who received the information to be part of this multi-author
Mhm.
experience.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh, I don't know. I don't know. And I've always wanted to write, but I've been working on reclaiming my poetic voice
Okay. Okay.
and writing more poetry and just writing in general.
Mhm.
And so I was sharing it with this friend of mine, and she's like, oh no, Kim, you need to do this. You need to write. You need to start getting this out there. And I'm like, oh, okay, okay. And
So glad you
so
did.
Thank you. I am too. It was actually a very liberating experience.
Okay.
Yeah, when I was writing it, I physically got ill. Like,
Oh, okay.
yeah, so it's interesting. I actually was, when I was young, I was put in dance classes, and so I've always had dance as part of my life. And so when I went to college in my undergrad, I was a dancer, and I moved
Okay.
to New York City to be a dancer choreographer. Yeah, that
Okay.
worked out really well. Um, real
Okay.
lucrative. How do you make money doing that? Um,
Okay.
but but that was always something in my life. But when I would go into the studio to create, um, I just would physically get ill. Like I would feel nauseous, lightheaded. My stomach would always start to churn, and I still feel that. I get that physical sensation when I try to create. And I don't know if that's just that gut feeling, like, or something else that's coming up, if it's that sort of stress response of flight,
Okay.
you know,
Fight, fight, flight,
fight,
freeze.
fawn.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. All of
Okay.
I think there's five different ones, but
Okay.
um, I don't know if it's part of that stress response of like, oh, whoa, you can't, no, you can't show that. You can't do
Right.
that. You can't talk
Right.
about that. And
Right.
I was physically having that experience as I was writing this chapter.
Okay.
I did a lot of the writing. I was actually on vacation with my siblings, and our families, our extended families as well.
Okay.
When I handed in my first draft for it, and so I had spent a lot of time while I was there trying to finalize it and putting it
Okay.
together. And oh boy, that was hard.
How long did it take you to write it?
Um, you know, that's a good question because I'm just trying to think when we started. I think it was like a 6 month process
Oh,
overall.
oh, okay. Okay, not
Yeah.
too long.
No, no. I think the way that it was structured, we did some group sessions where we just came together
Mhm.
and had a space where we could just write and dedicate to that time.
Okay, that's awesome.
Um, yeah, it was really awesome because I felt extremely supported throughout the entire process too. No. So it was very interesting because the way that I ended up sort of being able to put it on paper was that I really distanced myself from it. And how did I do that? I did that by talking about it in a very ethereal, sort of hard to kind of grasp way. So the
Okay.
first we sent them in for edits, and the editor was like, "Can you ground this in more concrete ways? This is going to be confusing for your reader. I'm not quite sure I really understand what you mean here,"
Okay. Okay.
because I didn't want it grounded,
Okay.
because I wanted it to be in this like sort of fairy tale, like
Right. This is my
ethereal.
experience, but it's not really my experience. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Um, I think I ended up grounding it enough that I hope that the reader does follow the thread line of the process,
Mhm.
but also brought in some of those fantasy elements and sort of that play imagination of a child.
Okay. I told you I was going back and forth. I'm like, did she mean this or did she mean that? And I would put it down and I'm like, let me go back to it. Let's reread it again. And then it was the wow one. I'm like, okay, is that just somebody else that she's creating in her head, or is that really herself? And then I'm like, well, is that somebody else? Like literally somebody else. It
Uh,
was, yeah,
oh, that's so interesting. I love hearing people's ways of like how they're reacting to it
yeah,
because yeah, because I think it could be all of that, right? And
right,
it's like, well,
right,
what does it mean to you? Who is your wild one? What is that?
exactly. And
What
I'm
is
like,
that
well,
voice
we
in your
all have
head?
a wild one.
It's just really very, very recent that I started talking to them about it. Like within the last 2 years.
Wow, really recent.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
How did mom
Um,
feel about you writing a book?
She doesn't know. I didn't say anything, so she knows. She knows it through my siblings. But
Kimberly,
I didn't say,
oh my
oh,
God. Oh my God.
no, so it's very interesting because I was going to tell my mom.
Mhm.
I was going to talk to her about it, and I didn't want to talk to her before it was out in the world, right? Because I didn't want that to influence me or to doubt my own voice,
Yeah.
and my own self-agency for being able to tell a story. And I mean, everything that was there, I know was my experience, and the way that I write about it was my experience. And I'm sure she had a very different experience. And I love that you said, oh, you just really felt for her. Like you had that compassion for her and you really saw it from her perspective, which means then I did a good job
Yeah. Yeah. I did.
at
I
like,
did. I was like, oh, mom.
um, it's an ongoing every day, right? Every day you have to come back to this. And I think for me, my dad, both my parents are definitely getting up in years, and my dad has had some health issues, and I went to go see my mom the last time that my dad was in the hospital, and this would have been in March, or no, I want to say it was in May of 2020, or maybe it was March of 2021, but it was around the pandemic. Oh no, it was so my dad was having some issues. It was in March of 2021.
Okay.
And so I flew out because we weren't sure what was going to happen because it seemed like it was definitely like tail end,
I
but
know. Okay.
he rallied. So, I still get to see him this year in
Okay.
December, so it's
That's
exciting.
awesome.
But so I just saw my mom in a really vulnerable state. And it was the first time that I really saw her like in that, like not really sure what to do. And as an adult, just like seeing her that way and being like, oh, she's never really had anyone to take care of her or to nurture her and love her and show her
Okay.
that she can ask for help. And I think what really got to me too is that my parents are very religious and, go to church. And I grew up with that in my background too. They grew up Lutheran, and they're still part of the church that I grew up in. And the pastor came to visit my dad, and he was there talking with me and my brother, and he was like, yeah, your mom reached out, really concerned. I wanted to just introduce myself. And it also gave me that, like, wow, my mom, oh, amazing that she reached out, first of all, because like
That's unlike.
asking for help is hard, right? And I think it was because he saw something she may have posted on Facebook, but I'm not sure exactly. But yeah, so just reaching out and asking for help. And that was something that I personally learned too, that it was really hard for me to ask for help. I still am challenged for asking for help. I have a really, really hard time asking for help because I feel like if I'm asking for help, then that something is wrong with me and I'm broken.
Okay. Okay.
But it's not. Like if other people ask me for help, I'm like, yeah, sure, I'm happy to
Right.
do it. Or, oh, I can't do
Right.
it now, but I can do it later.
Right. Right.
And so just even reaching out to people and saying, hey, do you mind? I need some help with this. Do you mind just helping me out with whatever it is? And most people are like willing to help you, but it
Yeah.
has taken me years to figure that out. And I would just say probably within the last few years, it's been the case for me is to ask
Okay.
for that. But so just seeing my mom in that state and that just, just very concerned. And I just remember like one of their wedding anniversaries, we had a big party for them and somebody found old film footage. And I saw my dad just like take my mom into his arms and like just kiss her so passionately. And I'm like, wow, he loves her.
Her.
He like you could see that
The
love, that
love.
deep, deep love,
Right. Right.
and he was just passionate about her. And I just never saw that part of their relationship.
Right, right.
Because when you're raising kids, right? When you're
Right, the responsibilities and day to day. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, exactly.
yeah.
And the stresses of life and everything, right?
Mhm.
And I just realized like how deep that connection was for them. And then also just realizing my mom also just she's also hurt, right? She's got hurt parts of herself that she's never had anybody just kind of mother her
Right. Oh, okay.
and be able to take care of herself. And one of the other things too that, and part of the reason this has all kind of come for me in terms of how do I let go and how do I forgive, um, or just even not hold her accountable for some of these things and just like, you know what, she was doing the best she could with what resources she had available, which always sounds like a cop out, but I guess I think about it. I was doing some research around, I wanted the attribution, the official attribution around the quote of be the change you wish to see in the world. Because everybody says it's Gandhi.
Right, right.
But
Okay,
it's not. It's not
okay.
Gandhi. And so this led me to The Love Principles by Arlene Lawrence. And she has these love principles, and she has 6 different principles. And I'm realizing as I'm reading them, and this book came out in the 70s, like early 70s. Um, and as I'm reading them, I'm like, oh, okay, these are some things that I do to live my life as I have always done them naturally for myself. The first one is have no expectations, but rather abundant expectancy,
Okay.
which I do. I like going on vacation, great. Let me not set a bar of expectations of what I want to
Right.
expect.
Right.
But I'm going to go in with abundant expectancy, and it may be better, it may be worse,
Maybe
but
worse.
you know what?
Right.
I'm going to go for it.
Right.
Just
It's
like see
gonna
what
be an
happens.
experience either way it goes.
Exactly. Problems are opportunities, which I know we've all been making that shift in our language anyway. We don't always, oh, it's an opportunity. We get to do something different or new. Provide others with opportunities to give. So this is a big one for me.
Okay.
And I've been learning that lesson with my husband, is allowing him to give.
To
And
give in what way?
where he wants to give, like things like opening the door for me.
Okay.
I'm like, or carry my bag, and I'm like, no,
Right.
I got it. You know, I'm a strong woman. I could do this. You
Right.
know,
Right. Okay.
but allowing like those little gifts that he does throughout the day for me.
Okay.
And then creating your own reality consciously. So being very conscious about and intentional about the life you're creating for yourself and your family and the reality that you're creating.
Mm.
And then she had her 5th principle is be the change you want to see happen instead of trying to change anyone else. Right. So I can't change my mom. I can't change the past. The past is me. It doesn't define me.
Right.
It's an experience. And it's how I respond and how I integrate that experience for myself, how I learn from that experience. But
And use that experience to move further and farther. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Mm. And uses that as an opportunity to help others who have had similar experiences. Say, you don't need to sit in that silence and you don't have to go through it alone.
Right. And you're empowering so many more people, even with just writing your experience in the book. Right.
Yeah, which I love in the book. Like everyone has those stories where they're really trying to empower so many other people in the world.
Right. Right.
Yeah. And then the 6th principle, this is the one that was the kicker for me with my mom, especially.
Okay.
Receive all people as beautiful exactly as they are. And so it's really hard for me because it's like where I started to like, oh, wait, it's not accept all people as beautiful. It's receive them. And what does that mean? How do you open your heart? How do you have love and shine love? I mean, honestly, it's about love. Let's come.
Right.
That's why I love this love principles, right? Yeah, I mean, you're
Okay.
hearing more and more about
Right.
leaders and how do you lead, you know, how do you have heart-centered leadership? How do you center your heart? How do you center, that's where your love comes from, right? Is your heart. You say it, you feel it here, right?
Yeah.
And it's very interesting because she was saying in the book, Lawrence was saying in the book, is that your unconditional love comes from your heart, But the love of passion, like when you fall in love, comes from your solar plexus.
Okay.
And I'm like,
Okay.
oh, those are two different parts of your upper body. And I'm like,
Right.
oh,
Okay.
interesting. And where does the love for your kids come from? Like, here, I feel it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
And the love for my husband, I feel here. It's a different,
Yeah.
like, it's a different place.
Oh, it really is now that you say that.
Yeah. And the body sensation and where you feel things in your body. It's so interesting. So, but that one was the piece that I'm like, how do I receive all people as beautiful exactly as they are? And I was like in my mind, like picking the most horrendous individual in the world right now living and trying to
Trying to
figure out
receive
how do
that
I
person.
receive that person?
I
I haven't gotten there, but I'm working on
I was
it.
about that was what I was gonna ask. Like, how is that going for you? You're
It
still
is,
working on it. Okay.
it's
It's a process.
hard.
Yeah.
It is a process. It is a process. And that's where that whole self-reflection and like change starts from you, right? If we want to change the world, we have to change ourselves. We have to look at ourselves. And how do we start to, I guess, deconstruct these systems and deconstruct these blueprints that we've been given for
Okay.
so many
For
years,
so long. And
for
what
so
we've been
long.
taught and trained and yeah.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
it's just become a way of life for us. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like the air we breathe. We don't even notice it. We just think we have to do it because
That's just the way it's always been.
and we can make new things.
This, Kim, this has been amazing.
Thank you so much for this conversation, this opportunity, being yourself and just showing up. I love that you're trying to bring messages out to parents because these are hard topics. People are still, the stigma is still real.
Still real. And people are still going through every day.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Anything you want to share with us?
Yeah, if it's okay, I'd love to share a poem that I wrote.
Okay.
I actually originally had it in the manuscript for my chapter, but then I took it out because it sort of fit, but not really. But I would love to share it here if that's okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. It's called Coming to Life. Moving through the rings of life, hopping, jumping, leaping through the fire, our life cannon shoots us out into the air, grasping for breath, claiming our one precious life with a cry.